Hey guys, just a quick apology on this video ahead of time. My Camtasia screen recorder unfortunately is a little bit buggy throughout, has been a little bit buggy throughout 2022 and 2023, and it unfortunately during recording will quit on me and then I'll lose all my cursor data. So the screen recording is here, but unfortunately on much of the video you won't be able to see my cursor. It doesn't affect the brush, which is fortunately the main tool I use in Photoshop, but the standard arrow cursor and other cursors unfortunately have been lost. So I'm still going to provide you this video, but just bear in mind it might be a little harder to follow because of the lack of the cursor. Alright, so here is another Neon Nights Cyberpunk style. Well, not really Cyberpunk because she's not wearing Cyberpunk style clothing, but definitely Neon Nights nightclub style, that kind of thing. So the key to shooting these, first of all, this was shot at the Dave & Buster's. The key to shooting these is, a big part of it is the ambience, the ambient lights. So in Dave & Buster's, they have like a ton of, arcade games, and that's exactly what I was going for, to make it look like it's kind of like a nightlife shot, nightlife photo. And then the other component of this is shooting with a very fast lens. In this case, I believe it was a 50mm 1.4. Yeah, my Sigma Art 50mm 1.4. An 85mm 1.4 is also really good for this. But in this case, it was the 50. And the other factor here to kind of give this a little bit of magic is to add what are called overlays. And specifically, I have a variety of like light streaks and bokeh balls that I can add to make this look even more dramatic, a little more flair, add a little more flair to it, no pun intended. But yeah, that's the idea. So let's just take a look at what this started out as first. First of all, this was the original white balance right here. And then I did some color correction, white balancing, to get it to a more realistic skin tone instead of the blue. The blue's cool, but in general, blue kind of implies the feeling that you get from blue is solitude, loneliness, in some case masculine. It's more of a masculine color. So I wanted to get it a little more real world, natural skin tones, a little bit of red, hints of red and pink and orange and all that. It's a little more feminine, bottom line, is really what I was going for. And yeah, let's go ahead and open this up in Photoshop. Alright, I have this open in Photoshop now. So this is the one that I worked on here. I didn't really do much. I just created a high-pass layer or version of this photo using the filter other high-pass, and then I turned it into an overlay. And what that does is sharpen the photos. It is a way that you can sharpen photos because this was slightly blurry. Yeah, so I sharpened it just a little bit. And then I did some liquify. I just shrunk her waist down a little bit. So that's all I've done. Now, I'm going to go through kind of my normal retouching before we get to the effects and stuff. She has such a pristine complexion. I may end up not doing any frequency separation, but I'm going to give it a whirl just to see if I can make a little bit of changes. There is some variations in skin tone right here and on her forehead, and it's really funny because when you don't see them until after you do. Sometimes you don't see these blemishes or you don't see these skin tone issues until after you apply frequency separation. So it's interesting. So yeah, let's do my 3-layer frequency separation on this one. We're going to go with 7. We'll start off with 7. That may not work, and might have to toy around with it here a little bit. Okay, we're going to switch to the black brush and make sure we're on the medium pass layer, layer mask specifically. And let's make sure everything is as it should be. I did the wrong layer when I ran my frequency separation action. So let that be a lesson. Make sure the correct layer is chosen. So let's try that again. 7, 28, 28, and 7. Yeah, make sure we've got the right layer going. All right, so try that again. Black brush, and there we go. Yeah. So I mean, and this is a good example. So you may not have seen it, but I noticed it because I've been doing this forever, and so I can notice small variations in skin tone. This area right here, there's kind of a variation here in pigment. The color of the skin is different now, whether it's a shadow or just that was her skin, who knows? But the idea is to correct it. So let me do this one more time here, get a little more get this. It added a little bit of darkness. I probably want to go with a lower number, actually. I'm going to run this again. Actually, I'm going to stamp visible. Get rid of all this. Okay, let's try that again. All right, and we'll run the 3-layer frequency separation again. Let's go with 5 this time. 20. 5 times 4 is 20. That's what those numbers are. Okay, and let's see. Now, and this is a good idea, a good situation here. So we have some skin tonal issues. It appears as if there's redness here, but this is also the shadow that her nose is producing, a little bit of that. And so when remove that, and this is why frequency separation, you have to be careful with it because it can remove dimension. So what we can do is run the frequency separation and get rid of this, but what I'll do maybe later is restore some shadow with dodge and burn. Because right there it looks, it just looks too flat. So let's just finish up here. Yeah, I think that'll work. And then her arms and tummy, I think I'm gonna see if I can get. Let me run the 3-layer frequency separation again, and since we're dealing with a larger surface area, as you know by now, or should know by now, maybe you don't know by now, but with this frequency separation action, the larger surface area that you're working with, which in my case with portraits is arms and the rest of the body, you'd go with a larger number to get the most realistic result possible. So let me go with 15 here, and times 4 is 60, times 4 is 60, and then 15. Oh yeah, I duplicated the wrong one again. Look at that. What is happening? Why is that? I'm not sure why that's happening. Let me make sure I didn't get rid of anything I didn't want to. Okay, fine. Let's do that again. 15, 60, 60, and 15. And yeah, if you just look, there's like small kind of just almost blotchiness going on with her arms. And I'm just going to kind of try to clean that up. Actually, that number might be too high. I'm going to go lower. I'm going to go 12. Could just do standard frequency separation on here actually too. And again, you know, it's flattening everything out. That's the kind of side effect. So what I'll probably do is go back over this with a brush, a dot, and just burn the shadows back in. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've done our retouching, editing to the face. I'm going to go ahead and do that dodge and burn layer now. There's a couple of different ways to do dodge and burn. So some people prefer the curves approach, and in this case we're just burning. I'm not. Oh, actually, I could dodge, but we'll go ahead and do the curves approach for dodging and burning here. So what the idea is to bring to make a curves layer, and we'll call this burn. And you bring this lever down to, well, after we bring it down, we invert the layer, so Command or Control I. Okay, and then the idea is to paint back in areas of the body where we lost dimension. So we're going to bring my flow down to 1. And I'm just going to make this a little more even. So that alone right there restores some dimension to her nose. Okay, and then we lost a little bit over here as well. So I'll just do the same thing over here. Oop. Just a little bit. Didn't really lose much, honestly. And I'm not too worried about being super precise. I mean, you notice I'm being really sloppy with the choices, or rather my brush strokes, because the background really, it's not going to impact the background that much. And while I'm at it, I can add a little more dimension here. A little more dimension right there. Right there. And let's just take a quick look at the original. So, and that's another thing about dodge and burn, is you can clearly see dodge and burning can affect like the shape of things, right? So her nose looks thinner with this, and I didn't necessarily want to do that. What I can do is attempt to match this a little better. Switch to a black brush, and let me get rid of this area right here. Let me pump up there we go. And let's take another look. And it was about just right here. In fact, what I can do here is turn this layer off, and I have the original background layer, and now I'm using it to guide me to reintroduce this dark area, this shadow. So do something like this. Oh, I have my black brush on, so let's do that again. Sorry, it is late and I'm just a little tired. All right, let's do this. Let's get that going. Let's just get that going. Add this. And I'm just going to erase a little bit of this part right here to see if I can more closely match her original dimensions. And yeah, let me get down over here as well. Oh, I didn't get that. I had my black brush on again. Man, I am being sloppy tonight. Okay. So that's a little closer. I think I'm satisfied with that. We don't have to get too nutty with it. Let me just back off this this one a little bit. This streak there. All right, now one thing to be aware of is with the curve approach, you introduce saturation. So you can obviously clearly see the redness is there. So when you're dodging in, or rather burning in shadows with a curve, then that can happen. So one thing you can do to mitigate that is add a hue saturation layer and then turn it into what's called a clipping mask. Okay, the clipping mask will only apply to the layer beneath it. You see this little arrow here. That means that this any changes we make here will only apply to the layer beneath it. So what I'm going to do is just desaturate this a little bit here, so it's not so red. Yeah. Okay. So let's gotta go over, maybe do a little more burning over here on the face to contour her face a little bit. Just add some extra shadow here. All right, and then do we need to dodge? Well, we don't have to, but why don't we go over it since we're here? So we're going to call this one dodge, another curves layer. We're going to bring this one up this time like this. And the idea is to dodge in highlights. So again, we're going to invert it. Switch to my brush and my white brush. And just add a few little speculars. We can accentuate the eyes a little bit. Let's boost this up a little more. Just add a little more color to the eyes. This one's kind of blurry, but that's okay. Add a little more sparkle. Okay, and let's see. Let me just lightly go over parts of the skin. Let me close this. Is getting distracting. Close you. That's a little too heavy-handed. Let me bring the flow down. Let's get the lips. Add some little more sparkle to the lips. Very subtle. Nothing too crazy. And while we're at it, let's add a blank layer. Let me go ahead and really get those eyes. I'm going to switch to a brush, a white brush. And let's get the flow up to 100. And just a quick trick to enhance eyes. It's kind of cool. You just brush on the iris here. Same thing on this one. And then you set the set it to overlay. And then you're going to bring the opacity down to 0 and then creep this up until you get to a level that you're comfortable with. And this is just adding a little bit of extra pop to the eyeballs. Yeah. Really add that that extra sparkle. Okay, so I think we're good with, kind of retouching this at this point. Let's bring that eyeball color down a little bit. It's a little too dramatic. There we go. Maybe that's not dramatic enough. Let's see. That's good. That's good. We don't want to go too crazy. Eyes. Sparkle. Okay, so I think we're good to maybe add some overlays. Let's do a quick before and after, actually. Let's put all these in a group. And mainly just kind of focusing on the face here, and you can see definitely a change, but I think we're good. All right, so the next thing is to add an overlay, and then you can get overlays all over the place. Inky Deals has a pretty good selection of overlays. Let's see, there's a couple other options. Summerana, Urban Bloom, and Inky Deals. Those are the three that I have purchased the most from as far as like effects, overlays, etc. So let's see if we can find maybe a bokeh overlay that is suitable for what we want. Something maybe surrounding the model. Not much in there that I think will work. Let's see. Sunbeams. There might be something in here. Actually, one of these might work pretty good. And then we can layer mask it so the middle part is not affected, which is where the model will be. Let's go to the top, take a look. I think this one will work. Something like this. So we'll take and drop this onto the image. We'll orient it correctly. Actually, let me put this in the group. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add a layer mask to it, and we're going to invert it. Okay, and then we're going to switch to a white brush. And don't forget, invert is Command-I. All right, so, let's set this to screen. Forgot to do that so that it works with the surrounding environment. So something like that. Let's get rid of that one. Let me see. There might be something. There might be a better one because that one doesn't completely. I want it to look almost like she's framed. This one might work better, or I can combine two of them. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let me do that. Let me combine this one. Let me add this one. And we'll get this one going as well. Okay, whoops. All right, and invert. And let's see if we can paint that. Set it to screen. And we'll paint this in here. Let's see if this works. Maybe something like that. That's pretty good. We don't want to get too distracting. Oops, let me get the right one here. Let's remove this. Make sure she's not affected by any of this. All right, it looks pretty good. Other thing I want to do is add a curves layer, another curves layer, to add a vignette, or at least to kind of darken the surrounding image and bring a little more attention to her. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is, when you're on any layer, in this case, I want to put the curves layer above the dodge layer. So I'm actually going to click this dodge layer first. Then I'm going to switch to the elliptical marquee tool and then circle around the model. About like that is where I'm going to want it. I'm going to right click in this area, click on select inverse. I'm going to right click again and select feather. And I like to feather about 600. All right, and now that we have the selection we want, we're going to now create the curves layer. And the reason we did that is because when I create this curves layer, it's going to automatically apply the effect to the mask, just like that. So let's now switch the properties, and we'll bring this down to see if we can just give a little more drama here to the image overall. It's a little too dark. It's hitting the when it starts to flatten out here, then you're flat lining on the blacks. You don't want to go too dark. Maybe something like right around there. Okay. So, that's basically that's going to be it. Another thing we can do, well, if I always say that, it's going to be it, and then I think of something else to do. One thing we want to do here actually is clean this up a little bit. It's make sure she's not touched by that vignette at all. It's not bad, actually. In fact, we can add a little bit of dimension here. I think that'll work, actually. So another thing we can do is add kind of a flare effect. Let me go ahead and create a new layer. I'm going to switch to a brush. I'm going to switch to a red brush. And I'm going to change this to hard light. And then I'm going to bring my brush up to its max, I think. Where did you go? There you are. Why is it going away? Huh. It's going away. Was it disappearing? Okay. Anyway, I'm going to add it right there-ish. All right. And then it's on hard light. Let's mess with the color a little bit to see if we can get something that'll work. Something like that. Let's bring the lightness up. Maybe right there. I'm probably going to change that later. Let me add a duplicate. I'm going to delete what's in the duplicate, and I'm going to switch to my wet brush again, and I'm going to dab, this time, white, and then, or rather red, but I'm going to bring my hue saturation and bring this lightness up. And sorry, the hue saturation that I'm doing Command U. It's a destructive hue saturation application, but in this case, it's not a big deal. Being destructive in that scenario is not huge. Now, this is a little much. Let me see if I can mess with this a little more. Again, I'm doing Command U. Blue may not be bad here. It kind of looks kind of cool. It's blend. Sorry, everybody, got slightly interrupted there, so we'll just pick up where we left off. So let me turn off my Netflix. All right, so yeah, I was looking at this, and I don't know if I'm going to, in the final picture, I'm going to include this effect. I really like the natural skin tones and the blue. And in fact, it doesn't matter what the color was, it kind of affects her skin, and I'm not sure if I want to do it, but I got to think and sit on that. But I'm not going to make you guys wait while I sit and think about that. One thing I will say is a flare on the other side might work a little better. So let's do that real quick. Let me add this above. Let me delete this. And maybe a red flare, I think, in this case. Since she has red already in the back. Dab. And I'll bring this up a little bit. Yeah, I think the red might work. Whoa. What in God's name is it bringing over? Oh, okay, I needed to make a new layer. It's like copying parts of the old layer that I did not want to copy. Oh well, no big deal. I just won't be lazy, and I'll just make a new layer and set the blend mode. Okay. Try that again. Right there. And we'll bring this up right about there-ish. Yeah, I think the red will do nicely. Back it off just a little bit. Maybe like right there. Okay, let's do a before and after. And I'll add a small dab right here. Command U, and bring that lightness all the way up. And to make sure that's it's not touching the model or it's not affecting the model's face, I'm going to put them in a group. I'm going to layer mask the group, and then I'm going to switch to my black brush and just make sure that the color is not affecting her 100%. I want to make sure her face is nice and clean of that color. You know, to each their own. Some of you may like that, but I just want to make sure, in my case, I want to make sure she's clear of that. All right, so that's before the flares. That's what the flares added. Just a little extra punch. Let's go ahead and add, let me add another curves layer here underneath all these flares. In fact, underneath these overlays as well. And I'm just going to enrich the blacks a little bit. It's actually too much. Let me see here. I might be able to do it just with this. Nope. Just add a little bit of contrast. Let's go ahead and bump this down a little bit, and we'll bring this up a little bit. Very subtle. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's call this one flares. Let's go ahead and just organize our layers a little bit. Flares. Let's call this overlays. And we can do some compare and contrast. So, for example, if you know, it's the flares and the overlays aren't your cup of tea and you decide you don't want them as part of the photo, then you can remove them very easily. Just hide them or delete them. Why does this seems like a lot now? See, and this is how brains work. Let me bring this down a little bit. I kind of like it without the overlays because it's adding it's revealing kind of the contrasty background. This is a little more magical, but is it too much? I think this might actually work just like this. We'll see. Yeah, this is one of those ones where I have to think about it for a little bit. But you get the idea. This is all about having fun, adding overlays, adding flares, punching up the photo a little bit, going through the retouching, making the eyes sparkle, like all that good stuff. And yeah, that'll be it for this tutorial, and we'll see you on the next one, guys.